Hello guys, and welcome back to Strategic Command World War II, World at War with our Allied playthrough. In the last episode, we looked over the situation, knowing that Japan is now far weaker and more vulnerable than I expected it to be. We have started the preparations for a long-term, non-rush plan to crash down on Europe as well, while not abandoning the idea that the Japanese Navy could still pose a serious threat. We are able to focus our efforts a lot more than we were previously able to focus on Europe. Before we do that, however, we have a couple things we can look at here in terms of getting this fleet together. So we got all the upgrades we need for a lot of these units. So let's go ahead and send them over there. I'll still get these naval units upgrading. It doesn't cost a whole lot. I can't use this one. I just moved it because I was trying to get the Slim HQ into a transport, but it really doesn't want to get into a transport. And I'll test out if it works at this port instead next turn, and we'll see. It might just, for whatever reason, not be transportable. It might be a bug. It might be intentional. If that ends up being the case, then I'll have to just embed the Indians into someone else's army, because I wouldn't be able to get the HQ out of here. And so we'll figure out what the plans with the Indians are. For now, let's go look at Greece. With Greece, we have to reinforce the Desert Air Force fighters once again. We do have room to try some tactical bombing, but it's not something that we need to do. The only army that can actually reach up north in this part of Albania, which the Italians have evacuated, looks like Albania can actually get a corps. I'm surprised that it can get even that much, to be honest. The only one that can actually get up there is the 10th Army. The 10th Army has been targeted a lot by the enemies, so it's not really in any position to do that. The 11th Italian Army is vulnerable still, so we're going to go ahead and arty this to get its entrenchment down to 0 and see what we might be able to do about it. We're going to reinforce the Epirus Army rather than actually attack with it. See, we can actually do some damage with the WDF army. That's quite interesting. Let's start with the 2nd Greek Corps. First and foremost, attacking, dealing 2 damage against the 11th Italian army. We will then, we'll swap the Athens Corps up. We don't want to attack with them right now. Alright, now let's try the WDF army. Dealing 3 damage, taking 1 damage. Let's use the British Corps. And we've shattered the opponent, killing them, and securing this road. Unless the Panzers want to step out of their fortifications to come down here, which I don't think is going to be very likely. Supplies up north in Albania are also just terrible, so anyone sitting in Albania cannot actually recuperate their losses, which is not a good thing at all. So, I guess we have no choice. Let's swap the Athens Corps up into Albania. I was hoping to leave the Greeks out of this, but I don't think we're going to have much option. So now that we've gotten them forward, we'll also hide the 10th Army behind the Rhodesians, where the 10th Army and hopefully the WDF Army will be able to get some repairs and such. And I will refrain from pushing up further here than I have to for the time being. We will instead see if the Panzers come out of their hole, come out of hiding, and we will prepare for that. We can't get the armored tanks up that far from down here. We can move it up onto the road, though, which should give it some more movement points and more capability to actually get up north, because just getting off this mountain part was half of the cost of moving. With that, I finished all the most important stuff that I really wanted to do with the UK between this and the last episode, so we have a lot of MPPs left thanks to America, and we can start using this to catch the UK up a little bit. Finally putting some more into research to get up closer to maybe reaching that maximum research. So obviously prioritizing the Air Force capabilities for the carriers and for the actual Air Force is very important for the UK. So we're going to put some points into advanced fighters. That leaves me with exactly 175 for further research, 402 left to spend. I think I'll pick the most obvious one and go for long-range aircraft to further upgrade the British fighter and tactical bomber capacity. As the Brits, we have 227 MPPs remaining, and I can actually go put that into some units, and I think I will. I'll go ahead and reform the BEF army, finally, with all the upgrades I could possibly give it for 203 MPPs. I might go for the core at some point next, just because paying this versus paying 338 for a new army is a pretty big difference, and these troops could be very handy in Brest with the front as it expands. I could also do with getting some more HQs, but that is a huge investment. Huge. So right now, I'll focus on just getting some more units into Brest, because that is something that we actually do need. So we'll go ahead and get the BEF again with all of its upgrades. Purchase that. 24 MPPs remaining as the UK. That's cool. We still have to use the USSR, and there's 350 MPPs that the Americans can use, but I haven't quite figured out what I want to do with. One thing that could definitely come in handy as America is once we're over in Europe, we might want some more bombers. Right now we have about a 1-to-1 fighter-to-bomber ratio, however that does include a strategic bomber, which is not actually going to be very important for trying to push and take things and maybe even deal with a navy. We have one TAC bomber, one medium bomber, we have one, I believe, maritime bomber on the way. I'm thinking we have just enough MPPs, in fact, to go ahead and get another medium bombers. These are kind of versatile. They can be put on land forces, but they're also capable of going after naval forces as well, mainly relying on technology. So cutting out the strategic bombers for the time being, I think I will get the medium bombers so that we can line Africa with those, ideally. We're only going to buy the one that we can afford right now. These are very expensive, so we'll go ahead and purchase that. That brings us down to 5 MPPs as America. And now we have the USSR to look at, so things have just been getting better and better in Europe literally every single turn, especially over here. The enemies have just been losing steam completely, and it's amazing. Look at these encirclements. Minsk is now out of supply. This panzer group just ran in and got completely surrounded out of nowhere. It was hilarious. Funny, even with no strength, this guy can still fight back. Well, that's unfortunate, but we'll have to deal with it. So let's take the Rifle Corps and attack the garrison at Minsk, the Frontier Corps. Start battering away at him. 2 damage, 2 damage. We did take 1 on the first attack, and then another corps, the second corps attacking. 3 damage dealt. No damage received. You always want to see that. This injured corps can go ahead and attack at Minsk. Alright, yeah, that looks good to me. Taking 1 damage. So Minsk shall basically be under our control. I can go ahead and move our HQ in the region directly up to Minsk because we really need him there to start pushing supply forward along this line. Now the Panzer can be dealt with, hopefully, in a similar faction. I believe everything here has gotten its strikes in except the 3rd army here. So we'll go ahead, we'll take the 3rd army and we'll attack the enemy Panzer, dealing 4 damage, taking 2 damage. Okay, not so bad, not so great, but not so bad. What would be best for taking down this Panzer is what I'm wondering. We'll take the 3rd Corps and attack it, dealing 3 damage, taking no damage. And I'm not so sure how I like keeping this core here, so we're going to go ahead and attack the Panzer with this. National morale bonus, enemy Panzer destroyed. I like to see that. We'll go ahead and move the 1st Corps up here behind the river where it will be safer, not entrenched anymore, but safer. They only sent an anti-tank up to deal with it in the first place, which means we're out of strikes on most things here, especially things that don't border down south. Supply in these regions really could be improved. In the rear in the Baltics, we do have some reinforcements we need to bring in, so let's go ahead and focus getting that. Nothing we have to worry about in the naval region. Memel still just completely unbreakable. We have the first tanks that can continue the assault on the Italian tanks, which have reinforced up to max, dealing 2 damage, taking 1 damage. We can now swap that out. And then, ooh, these are not really going to be able to do too much for us, are they? No, they're not. Something we can do is take this Rifle Corps and move it up to kind of get in between the enemy lines here. The Wodrig Corps is rather entrenched and holding out. We should probably commence a strike on that. Yeah, we do have an army right next to it, capable of launching a prepared strike. We'll attack, dealing 2 damage, receiving 1 damage, unfortunately. We can swap in the 16th Army, which does not actually have the capacity to really do anything against it. which is unfortunate. I don't think I have anyone that would be able to do that except maybe a tank unit. Well, at the very least, we can continue with our completely ballsy nonsense of encirclements and get Wodrig completely encircled now as well. And then we can deal with the problem of Wodrig more effectively at a later point. We'll reinforce the core right next to Wodrig. I don't believe anything else here can be reinforced in that capacity. And this army, I guess, will just move down to border it. Okay, we can get a decent strike in. 0, 1. Okay, that worked out. We dealt 1 damage, took none. We can attack with this army now. Deal 2 damage, take none. Okay, we could potentially get rid of the Wodrig core, which would allow supply to flow better in this region. We have 2 more strikes we can attempt. We'll start with this core southwest of Wodrig. Dealing 1 damage, taking none. Alright, strike again, dealing 1 damage, taking none. I don't think... Well, okay, no. We do have 1 more strike we can do. Although, it exposes the south here to potentially this anti-tank moving up. Although, this is probably going to be a far more productive thing. So I'll move the Vladivostok core up, swapping places, attacking, and securing the city of Wilno. Now, can anyone move forward? You're out of strikes, but you can move forward and secure the city of Wilno. Supply should be able to move very effectively now that the front around Gomel and Minsk has linked up with the actual Baltic front. That's very, very good. And we are unlocking the capacity to really just start encircling them in crazy ways. We will reinforce the first heavy shock tanks, not wanting to be too aggressive with that. We will reinforce the 18th Army as well. We do have the road and rail here to move supplies down, so I'm going to take the 5th tank, move them forward into the enemy zones of control here, and do the same thing with the first light tanks, pushing down, and against the Axis war machine. We can see anti-tank and anti-air waiting for us. Okay, this is their anti-air model. We have a very open fighter unit from Germany. We'll send the light tanks on to try to deal some damage against. We have a couple targets that the actual 5th tanks can go after. For now, I'll set it loose against the Italian tanks, even if we do end up taking damage and being focused down by the Germans. Not dealing any damage here would just be a crime in itself. It doesn't look like we'll get very lucky with the armored train, but we can still give it a shot. Dealing no damage and taking no damage. Unfortunate. We can move the 11th Army around the side here to try to link up with this push. We're going to need more bodies pushing down here with the breakthrough the tanks are making. The enemies are not very likely to stay on this city, if I had to guess. I might be wrong, but if I was them, I certainly would not stay there. The Moscow Corps is actually at full strength and does not need to stay where it is, despite having performed a strike. We can push it up into the forest next to the anti-tank. Also following it up with this rifle corps, who can move up behind it. Another corps over here that can move, meaning we probably would want to move someone else to make room. We don't have a lot of options for that, but I guess we'll move the 3rd Corps forward towards Bialystok. Yeah, there's this just 1 3rd Cavalry Division here to worry about. We'll move the 2nd Corps forward, since now it can. The 22nd Army will move northwest, trying to close some distance as we leave this tank unit some opportunity to recover itself. How are our fighters? Our fighters are okay. They're not too bad off where they are. We don't have fighter coverage over the entire front here, so I'm going to take this fighter unit and I'm going to move it up near the HQ down here. We probably want to move this one up as well to get some more coverage. We'll move it up just behind the actual fighting force here to extend our reach over the front with air protection. Now, looking at the south, we still have 491 MPPs to utilize and a beefier Axis situation here. In the south, we do want to make sure to push the enemies where they're weakest, and right here, which used to be their strong point, is now probably their weakest point. We have a lot of weak troops up on this front that won't be able to actually do a whole lot of damage, unfortunately. However, they can still do some, and even if we trade 1-to-1 inefficiently, that's better than otherwise. So I'm going to actually go ahead. I'm going to take this corps sitting on Uman, use their prepared strike to go ahead and attack the Spanish army, trading 1 for 2. Ugh. We're going to go ahead and retreat this way away from the front, so it definitely has somewhere safe to go rest. Now we'll see what we want to move up, what we can move up. We don't need a bulk of bodies up here because there's not going to be any easy way to push up here. The Germans are a lot more fortified and have a lot more units. So we'll take this corps down and send it all the way to Uman, where it can also get in a similar strike on our opponent. So we'll go ahead and take that strike, dealing 1 damage, taking 1 damage, a lot more actually even and promised. So I'm pretty happy with that. We do have the 21st Army, which can be pushed up. That would be pretty beefy and capable of doing some damage. We'll go ahead and send the army forward. It's an experienced army too. We could have given it an elite reinforcement. I don't think we still can, no. So we're going to go ahead and attack the Spanish army, dealing 2 damage, taking no damage. They have some strong Germans behind this line, but the line itself is still weak and worth going after. We will take the light tanks and assault the Spanish army, dealing 4 damage and destroying the Spanish army, taking 2 damage in the process. We now need to move up some units. Do we have any units that would be good for that? Well, we're going to reinforce the 1st Guards army rather than move them up. Give them a chance to recover. We can send this rifle corps forward, where we can find, yep, a very elite German force here, but also some weak little Italians that definitely are not going to be too big of a threat. We will send this light tank unit back where it can repair, so we can send this army forward in its place, the 1st Red Banner Army, to attack the Italians here in the woods, getting rid of some of their entrenchment, hopefully, and dealing some damage. We can go ahead and attack with the 5th Corps, unfortunately not accomplishing anything. I will play a little bit aggressive here and push my way through this line to try getting around behind these Italians. We don't have a lot of chance to actually hurt them with any of the corps to their sides, but we might still want to give a shot to it. Yeah, we'll go ahead and attack and see what happens. Nothing for nothing. Alright, that's a shame, but we tried. We're going to take this mechanized and move it up towards the 2nd Romanian army here in the meantime. Yeah, they have a lot of their units in the rear, otherwise I wouldn't be able to make as much progress as I am making. We'll take the mechanized and attack the enemy 2nd Romanian army, dealing 4 damage, taking 1. That's quite a trade. Jesus Christ. Supply over here is not so bad. It'll only get better because we are going to get the Zhukov HQ pushed forward soon. Pushing any further into here is going to be a little suicidal, if I do say so myself, for whoever is sent up there. Maybe less so if it's a mechanized unit. Mechanized units would hold off way better than a corps would. So let's try to do that. We're going to send this mechanized forward. Now we can see the full extent of things here. We're going to push on the Romanian army still, wiping it out completely, taking 1 damage. Unfortunate since we're now on the front, but that allows us to push even further. So, assuming none of these can get elite reinforcements, we'll take this rifle corps and push that up to the enemy lines. Not a whole lot we can do up here. We'll go ahead and push an attack on the Italians here. Okay, we did get some damage in there. That's nice. We can now swap these 2 corps and go ahead and attack the Italians again, dealing another 2 damage and pushing the Italians back, opening up room for us to push another corps forward and attack the Italians again, dealing another 2 damage and pushing them back even further. Now that's where our push stops, unfortunately. I'm going to reinforce the 43rd Army. It still has morale. It's a good distraction for these German troops that are losing their readiness. I can, and I think I will, go ahead and push. Ugh, this is a corps, though. Well, whatever. It's moving into a farce. We're going to push this corps forward, try to give the Germans something else to think about in the time being. These engineers, I don't really know if I want to use them offensively, but they can certainly be pushed forward into the Pripyat marshes without really losing much. We have our fortification set up, and at this rate, we're not really going to need them. If we can use these engineers in some flanking maneuvers, that would actually probably be more productive than anything else I otherwise would have used them for. Now over here, they are very strong, our opponents. But the 1st Heavy Guard tank can make a sizable chunk in the Hungarian army here. We'll go ahead and attack. We take 2 damage, we deal 2 damage. Okay, that's something. We want to ideally deal as much damage as possible, meaning a mechanized would be a lot more useful here than, say, the Sevastopol Corps. So we'll swap the mechanized in and attack again, dealing 4 damage, taking none, unfortunately not getting it to retreat, which, well, alright, let's play a little suicidal then. Let's send the Sevastopol Corps around to attack, And what do you know? We destroyed it, taking 1 damage in return. We can now send the Stalingrad Corps up to also take positions along the river, making this whole front a lot more of a poke through. Holy shit, we are just getting right through them. It's pretty awesome. I'll take this corps and move it down the road towards Bucharest to try to assist with our push here. We're going to move the 10th Corps down a little bit as well. Just trying to push our front slowly in the direction that we want to be moving it over here, letting them attack us across the river, letting them attack us coming out of their entrenchments. That's the kind of thing I'm pushing here. We're going to move the cavalry up in this direction to try to help hold this front along the road. The HQ is going to move forward to Odessa. We have the ability to deploy the paratroopers. Again, still nowhere necessarily very good to deploy them. At the very least, their paratrooping could get them to the front, but that's not really going to be the most necessary thing. So I might just unprepare them and have them start walking forward, because there's been no point where I really would have benefited very much from using them with their actual drop. And they can take damage if they just actually drop in. So I'll just put them on the railroad for the time being. I don't want to waste them or anything. We'll get the Mongolian Cavalry Corps moving up forward towards this line. We now have 439 MPPs remaining and nothing really important to pour our research into with the current priorities. Therefore, we can go ahead and start getting some other things up to snuff. For example, this corps can be operated to a front somewhere. Which front? I think I'm going to put it right here to help buff out the Baltics a little bit. And I believe, other than the anti-tanks, that's going to be everything. So let's go ahead and actually start replacing the anti-tank units here, getting them up to strength so we can then operate these 3 units to the front, as they have now been fully paid for. 269 MPPs remaining as the USSR. Not much else to put it into right now. I think I'll spend that on getting some rebuilds going to get some cheaper units in to make sure we retain our units no matter what. I will reform the 7th Army, which we have lost, for 158 MPPs. It's going to take 4 months to reform it, and we might not even need it, but we'll go ahead and reform it nonetheless. There's not much else I could reform of importance, and we still have 111 MPPs. Since we still have that much, I guess I'll say fuck it and get the naval warfare improvement. And that will help our ships, which probably aren't going to be too drastically, like, making a difference. I could have assigned their diplomacy chit, I just realized, because they got it back from Mongolia, because Mongolia is about to join the war. But I forgot about it. Therefore, with all of our plans in action, let's go ahead and hit end turn and see how the Axis reacts to the massive game-changing things we've been doing this episode. Massive game-changing things. Land units are moving, Bordeaux under bombardment, Mongolia moving further towards the Allies, even though they're already preparing for war. They're about to join. Australia, UK, New Zealand, UK, Canada, UK. Okay, I see. So we'll have another sub to deal with. Tech, infantry weapons level 2, that is game-changing for the USSR. Holy crap. If we start getting those on the line, and for the Chinese, these are coming at, like, the most important points when they're going on big offensives. We're going to be able to start making our units as elite as the enemy infantry, and that's fantastic. 728 as the USSR, that should be good for upgrades. We might be a little slower this turn if we're handing out upgrades, but that should be really good. 781 for the UK, 596 for America. Yeah, dude. This looks fantastic. Let's go ahead and see what the Axis are going to do now. I'm excited to see. Japan's going to freak the fuck out. I know that. The Germans are going to have to scramble on so many different fronts. Yep. Already tons of things retreating from the front here. Holy shit. Panzers being operated up to the front from the Greek front. Japanese HQ running away. Units being reinforced and also brought to the front in different locations. Yeah, they have so much movement. Can they replace this, or are they handing this to us? Is what I want to know. We're going to get as many upgrades in this upcoming turn as we can, so it may not be as action-packed, but it's going to get us way better off for continuing to push. But if they leave me any critical junctures where I can just continue to push pretty much unmolested entirely, you can damn well bet I'm going to take them. They're mostly just reforming stuff right now. Bombarding the oil with strat bombers. Ha! That's so smart. I've never seen the AI do something this smart. Although Japan was already supposed to have taken that shit over. The Greek corps on the front in Albania is getting bombarded, unfortunately. We have our British interceptors running cover. And unfortunately taking some damage on the Greeks, but that's fine. Interceptors going again. Escorts. Dealing some damage. Oh, that looked like a lot of damage. Oh, yeah. Oh, that was really good. That's actually working out really nice for us. I'm very happy about how this has gone. We have interceptors now on the Soviet front, defending some of our tanks pushed up by Memel. You know, we're about to cut Memel off, and if we can, that would be the best way to take it. This army is just too strong to push through. Yeah, look how much damage it does when it wants to. Absolutely insane. Would really be the best way to push through it for sure. Going on the offensive near us, I'm surprised they're even trying. I'm really surprised. They're desperately trying to deal any damage they can, but they can't keep up. The Italians coming down to attack our anti-tanks, that's stupid. Why would you do that? Woo! The Panzers did attack, as I kind of expected them to. This corps is getting beat the fuck up, but it's alive. The tank did leave its entrenchments, and are attacking after moving. Defensive artillery firing, defending the Greek corps. They're really just trying to kill this Greek corps. They're trying to take down any weaker targets they think they can, but these Panzers have signed their own death warrant. They're surrounded now. And they're gonna die the same way those tanks up north did. Holy shit, a whole bunch of Japanese troops have reached the front over on Japan. We're gonna need to open up another front for sure. I'll open as many fucking fronts as it takes, buddy. Submarine going southeast. Don't know if it actually got out of there, but it certainly eluded us for the rest of this time. Looks like Romanian HQs moving forward to this front that we've pushed. What's next? Mongolia joining the war? Oh, okay. 224 group forms in India. Oh, okay, that's an Indian fighter group. And an Indian tank group, and Mongolia just joined the Allies. Bordeaux being blockaded. Interesting. Fighter groups for India, huh? Sweden, Germany convoys disrupted. Churchill accuses Gandhi of being in the service of Japan. Red Orchestra espionage group is broken up in Berlin. Okay. That's so funny. Just fucking Christ. That's just like Churchill, isn't it? And there's all the events we saw. Our units arriving back on the East Coast. Army in Turin. Corps in La Coruna. Corona? Garrison in Syracuse. Special Forces in DEI. Special Forces in Eniwetok. Okay. Do we already know that that was there? I don't remember. Got an HQ to deploy for Canada. As well. Ooh, okay. That means we can send that over to Brest to make a larger front out of that. That's really good. As well as a sub that I ordered for America. Okay. Pretty good. Yeah, looking over here, they got, woo, an elite corps. Only a corps, no army. So this is probably a lot of what they have to offer here in terms of resistance. So if we get moving up north, which is going to take a couple turns, this is probably going to be landing near the start of winter. We can open a second front probably pretty easy. I don't know if we can open it up near Niigata or if we should go all the way up to Sapporo. Probably up to Sapporo, although we will run out of supplies going there. I think this is going really well. I don't know where that Japanese carrier is, but it's not close enough to really hurt me yet. Well, there's our big win of a turnover. So many amazing things happening, and now we must see how we continue. Let me know what you guys think about this major series of events that's been happening and going our way. How do you think the war will end? Do you think we'll run into any difficulties anyway? For now, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.